They didn't shout it from the headlines. They didn't hold a press conference. They didn't explain anything to the public. One day, his face simply disappeared. Posters were quietly replaced. Brand visuals were adjusted. Names that once dominated billboards were no longer mentioned out loud. In this industry, that kind of silence is never accidental. It's a message, a warning, sometimes a soft erasure. Many people assumed this was how the story would end. Another popular name lifted by traffic, quietly set aside when the tide turned. That assumption felt familiar, almost routine. Because in the entertainment world, the word traffic has always carried an unspoken second meaning: temporary. But what most people didn't see was what happened after the noise faded. No defensive statements, no emotional interviews, no carefully packaged redemption arc. Instead, there was only work. Long days on set, repetitive rehearsals, 6 months of physical exhaustion, emotional restraint, and complete withdrawal from public sympathy. And then, one ordinary evening, something unexpected happened. CCTV aired a film in prime time. No warning, no hype. Just a screen lighting up, opening credits rolling, and a nation watching. Within minutes, the atmosphere online changed. Comment sections slowed down. Arguments never started. Fan wars didn't arrive. What replaced them was something far rarer: quiet agreement. He can actually do this. That was the moment people realized they were watching not a comeback, but a verdict. In the days before that broadcast, the industry had already made its judgment. Resources were gone. Endorsements faded. Visibility shrank. For most artists, this would have been the stage for panic, explanation, or emotional display. But this time, there was none of that. There was only the film. Hot doesn't begin with grand declarations or heroic framing. It introduces a small figure moving carefully through a world that doesn't pause for him. Chen Shuo is not confident. He is not loud. His posture alone tells you everything. Someone used to yielding space. Someone who has learned how to exist without being noticed. This was the risk. Playing weakness convincingly is far harder than playing strength. Fear, when exaggerated, becomes artificial. When underplayed, it becomes invisible. Chen Shuo required balance, restraint, and emotional discipline. Every breath mattered. Every pause carried weight. What struck many viewers wasn't a single dramatic scene, but the consistency. The way the character's tension never left his body. The way hope appeared briefly, then receded. The way courage arrived not as a grand gesture, but as a quiet refusal to stop. For years, audiences had been trained to separate popularity from credibility, talent from traffic. This role refused that separation. It didn't demand applause, it demanded attention. Behind the scenes, the work was relentless. Dance sequences repeated until muscle memory replaced conscious thought. Emotional beats rehearsed without excess. No shortcuts, no visual tricks. What appeared effortless on screen was built through exhaustion. That effort didn't go unnoticed by those who understand the craft. When Wang Yibo spoke about the performance, he avoided easy praise. He didn't label it great acting. Instead, he described sensation. He talked about fear as something tangible, something the audience could feel without being told. That kind of observation doesn't come from politeness. It comes from recognition. Professionals speak differently when they are impressed. They analyze instead of applaud. They describe instead of decorate. The relationship between Chen Shuo and Ding Lei, the seasoned dancer who once dreamed loudly and now lives quietly, mirrors a larger truth about the industry itself. Dreams don't always fail dramatically. Sometimes they simply settle. This story wasn't about victory in the traditional sense. It was about persistence without guarantees. What gave the film its weight wasn't spectacle, but proximity. Viewers recognized themselves in the struggle, not the fame, not the stage lights, but the exhaustion, the doubt, the pressure to keep moving even when nobody is watching. And then came the moment that changed the conversation entirely. CCTV's scheduling choice. Prime time is not a gesture, it is not sympathy, it is not fan service, it is institutional trust. When a platform known for restraint places a work in that position, it sends a signal stronger than any award ceremony. Immediately after the broadcast, a trailer followed. No dramatic slogans. Just one line. Heroes don't ask about origins. That wasn't marketing. That was closure. Because by then, the audience had already decided, not through persuasion, but through observation. The label that once dominated discussions quietly lost relevance. Nobody announced its disappearance. It simply stopped being useful. What makes this transformation remarkable isn't speed, but duration. 4 years of steady work, one role at a time. No dramatic reinvention, no loud declarations of seriousness, just gradual recalibration. In an industry obsessed with immediate validation, this path feels almost outdated, yet that is precisely why it resonates. It reminds viewers that credibility is built slowly, and dismantling prejudice takes patience. There was no single scene designed to silence critics. No triumphant monologue. The shift happened collectively, across thousands of small reactions, across millions of quiet reassessments. And perhaps that is the most compelling part of this story. Not the fall, not the recovery, but the refusal to perform redemption. Today, when people mention Wang Yibo, the conversation sounds different. Less defensive, less dismissive, more curious, more measured. The work now speaks before the label arrives. This doesn't mean the journey is complete, it never is. But it does mean something fundamental has changed. Not just for one actor, but for how audiences interpret growth in an industry built on shortcuts. Because real transformation doesn't announce itself, it accumulates. And sometimes, all it takes is one quiet night, one uncompromising broadcast, and one role strong enough to hold its ground. If you stayed with this story until the end, thank you for giving it your time. Stories like this remind us why watching closely still matters. If you enjoy real-life industry narratives, quiet turning points, and moments when perception shifts without shouting, consider subscribing to Star Watch now. Your support helps us continue exploring the stories that unfold beyond headlines and hype. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you with us in the next one.